Hey guys, this is Austin, and I have found the world's most powerful laptop. Yeah, like the actual world's most powerful laptop. ASUS was kind enough to sponsor our trip out here to IFA in Berlin, where they're showing off the StudioBook One. Now, I would love to show you the StudioBook One. However, that one's being used, and that one's being used. Wait, I see one. We have to go quickly. This thing is loaded with tons of specs. Core i9 processor, Quadro RTX 6000 graphics with a full 24 gigs of RAM for the GPU, not counting the 32 gigs of RAM for the CPU. And to top it all off, this guy has a 4K 120Hz display. Oh, and did I mention that all of the components are in the actual screen? So that is, of course, hugely beneficial for cooling, where this thing can cool a full 300 watts. Now, what they've done here is by moving all of that over here, they've freed up the bottom section to actually be fairly thin. So pretty much all you'll see here is your keyboard, your trackpad, as well as your battery, which, with some specs like this, I'm curious to see how long it lasts. Now, with the world's fastest laptop in front of me, there's only really one thing I want to do. They won't mind, I'm sure. So ASUS actually let us take the laptop, at least for the night. They literally need it in the booth tomorrow. So we have the wonderful hotel setup. It's 11 o'clock p.m. and we have to give the laptop back in 6 hours. Let's have some fun, shall we? So this goes with all of these standard caveats that you would expect with a pre-production device. So this won't be out until later this year. The drivers are certainly not final. In fact, if you open up the NVIDIA control panel, it just shows graphics device. You know, that wonderful GPU known as the graphics device that probably costs more than most laptops that you are watching this on right now. The graphics are really what makes this thing shine. So this is the world's first laptop with the Quadro RTX 6000 series. Now, if you're not super familiar with the Quadro series, let's take the RTX 2080 Ti for comparison. The 2080 Ti has a mere 4,352 CUDA cores, making it the undisputed king among gaming GPUs. However, this has 4,608 beautiful sweet CUDA cores. And to top it all off, while the 2080 Ti has a measly 11 gigabytes of VRAM, this has 24 gigabytes. Yes, you heard me right, 24 gigabytes of RAM for the graphics. And in fact, if you look up this graphics card, you can purchase it for the desktop right now for a cool $4,000. Now, could I take a guess to see what exactly this would cost in a laptop? Yes, I could. Is the gist of it that it's going to be incredibly expensive and really only for the very top echelon of people who really need the absolute max performance? Well, yes. Yes, that would be the case. Now, the StudioBook One is undoubtedly meant for incredibly demanding workloads. We're talking 8K video editing, which actually we're shooting on an 8K Red right now, so we'll be able to test that in a minute. However, when you put a Core i9 laptop with the world's most powerful GPU inside a laptop in front of me, well, you know what time it is. Yes, my friends, it's time for Fortnite.
Really?
I actually should have had that. Hang on, sorry.
Really?
Wait, yes.
No.
Technically, when ASUS let me borrow it, they said don't benchmark it because it's not done, and that's not fair. But a little bit of Fortnite never hurt anyone, right?
This video.
Whoa, dude, holy. Dude, the air comes out the top of the case. Whoa, I didn't realize that. So one of the things about this is that it has a very unique cooling system because all of the components are in the top. What it's doing is it's pulling air in from the bottom. It actually blows the air sort of, not quite toward you, it kind of comes up. But do you see that? I didn't even notice that before. This is literally the exhaust on the top, behind the screen. Does no one in Germany play Fortnite?
I love this country.
You know what? This is the most powerful system I've ever played Fortnite with. Because on paper, now yes, the actual clocks are probably not as high as the 2080 Ti, but on paper, between the memory as well as the raw size and power of the GPU, this is more powerful than any other computer I've ever tried. And it's in a laptop, which is gently blowing in the breeze. Dude, it's so weird to feel the exhaust on top. So we're getting 40 frames per second at 4K Ultra. That's pretty good. It would be better if I had drivers that were meant to game. But I'm gonna play Fortnite regardless, even though this is a completely ridiculous and stupid way to test the world's most powerful laptop. Oh look, chug juice. Wait, no, shield juice. Oh, look at that. My 4K display, I can see him from here. Oh. Why, hello there. It's a few hours later, and I've got all the footage that we shot last night and imported it to the StudioBook.
So the first thing here is that obviously inside Resolve, 4K ProRes, even with a LUT, even with some color grading, completely butter smooth. Not really a big surprise. What's more impressive is when we start to play back some 8K raw footage. Now yes, you might drop a frame or two every once in a while, and a lot of that I chalk up to the fact that the drivers are definitely not done. But this is full 8K red raw footage playing back with color correction, with a LUT, and it's running at pretty much full speed. So yes, if you were curious, it can in fact edit 8K footage. Now if I was a real professional, I would show you like AutoCAD or Maya or something, but I don't know anything about those. So let's go back to last night before I tested the editing. There's some serious engineering that's gone into this laptop. So because there are so many components in the top, it is a little bit screen heavy. However, they've done a really good job of not only weighting the hinge, but also by making the mechanism very smooth. So as you can see when you open it up, you do have that little bit of a gap, which is where the air comes in and is exhausted out the top. When you close the laptop, it actually does turn into be a fairly lightweight, well, okay, I don't want to say lightweight because it's actually fairly heavy, but it is a fairly thin chassis. I mean, considering that this is the most powerful laptop in the world at any price, at any kind of form factor, the fact that it is actually fairly compact is a nice thing. So there are a total of 3 USB-C based Thunderbolt 3 ports, as well as the charger, which I'll get into in a second. However, there's no USB-A, there's no SD card reader, and unless I'm missing something here, there's not a headphone jack, which is a little bit unusual. That might be something they should add back in. Something kind of cool is the charger. So this is a 300-watt charger, which is actually really compact. If you guys have seen some of our other videos on these big beefy laptops, a lot of times they use 2 big power adapters that you have to lug around with you. However, because they're using gallium nitride, the charger is actually pretty much the same size as pretty much any standard laptop, except that it puts out like, what, 2-3 times the same power. The rest of the basics are definitely here. Now while the keyboard does have a little bit of a shallower stroke, to me it seems fine, the trackpad's solid. Now you are losing some of the ASUS special features. In fact, some of the ones that are actually on some of its bigger brothers, including this guy, the bigger brother to the StudioBook, the Pro X. Now this has a larger display. It does have the little screen pad, which I personally find to be pretty cool. And importantly, you will find all the ports you need. Really, even though this is a larger laptop, it is a little bit of a downgrade in some specs. It has a Quadro 5000 instead of a 6000. It uses a Xeon processor instead of the Core i9. But this is really for maximum performance, and this is a little bit more of a reasonable choice, a choice that most people would probably make when they're getting a workstation laptop. Something else they announced is their brand new ProArt PA32 UCG display. This is very much aimed at Apple's own Pro Display XDR, and it matches it in a lot of specs. Same size, same incredibly bright 1000 nits of brightness, as well as it does support HDR, it's got Thunderbolt. Really the only downside to this display is that it runs at a mere 4K as opposed to the 6K of the Apple panel. However, the nice thing is that ASUS is almost definitely going to include the stand. It probably will cost a whole lot less than $6,000. However, it won't be out until next year. But this is actually a display I'm super excited for. The StudioBook One is a ridiculous machine, and yet I kind of can't help but love it. I mean, sure, you've got the world's fastest thing going for it, mostly thanks to that ridiculous graphics card, but because you've got the interesting design, you've got the raw power, and you've got something which is legitimately different, I mean, there's a lot to like here. Except, well, maybe making payments on it, but it's okay. The world's best doesn't usually come cheap. And if it does, you should ask more questions, because that seems suspicious. Not cool. You don't want the world's best cheap thing. You want the world's best thing.